What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TWA Motorsports, and today you guys have seen this thing come together in a relatively short amount of time. We need to get it on the road and roadworthy, start the tuning process. We got a few little things to button up. The very first thing we're going to start with, though, is we're going to get this thing off the ground. I got to get the wideband installed today. Hopefully you guys are going to see some driving in this video. And we need to start the tuning process. We need to do the clutch break-in. We need to pull this thing off the lift, check all the fluids, let it like heat cycle a couple times. Literally the only time we've had it running, guys, is just a few starts and stops. We need to let it go through, like make sure we get all the air bubbles out of the coolant. But anyway, the few little things we need to tie in today. We need to hook the wideband up, which is, like I said, I think I said this in the last couple videos, we're gonna kind of do a temporary placement of the wideband. I'm just gonna run it through the door because it's not gonna be a permanent fixture on the car. We're gonna just use it for tuning purposes with Matt at GP Tuning. He's gonna be reading the data off this, making changes, sending me files to load up in this thing. So I'm probably not gonna show you a ton of that. I am gonna show you how we are gonna route that for temporary use. But a couple things. When we bought this car, the bottom of the fenders were cracked, so we did go back through and re-glue those both from the inside and the outside just to reinforce them. Pretty common that people jack up on these. I made a video a long time ago on the red Trans Am on the proper way to lift these things, so you don't do that. But a lot of people think the bottom of the fender is a lift point, and so a lot of times they bend over and they crack. And so these were cracked. We reinforced them with some epoxy on both sides. So we're going to get those fixed back on with the two 10 millimeters on the bottom of the fenders. Okay, so once we do that, the other issue is, if you guys can see back here, the old inner fenders that this thing had were all cut out for the turbo piping. That one actually looks like it was chewed off by a wild badger or something. It's pretty crappy looking. That one looks a little more cut, but yeah, we can't use those. And the downside is, this is like, it seems like the first thing gone in the salvage yard. So what we did was we purchased a set of replacements, and I'll list them in the description down below. And guys, we'll talk about this motorcycle in a different video. I didn't even think about that when I walked in front of it. Anyway, these are the replacements, and these are aftermarket, obviously, so they're not going to be the exact same as the originals. And I could tell you, for one, they're not quite as thick as the original, but the shape seems to be close, and we're going to give it a shot. Never used these before. I was really hoping that when we went to the salvage yard, we would find an actual set, but we're gonna try to get these installed today. The downside, they have the holes for the bottom, they have the holes for the outer side of the fender, but the little 7 millimeters, the 3 7mm that hold it in the inside, they're not there. And if you guys have ever put these back in before, it's kind of a pain to find those holes anyway. So we're gonna have to try to get lucky and see if we can poke something through on the other side to get us started and then get our hole placement. But I'll try to show you that. Aside from that, guys, we're really close as far as this other stuff. We're not gonna put this in yet because we're gonna hook up a shift light in this thing, but I don't really need it right now. That may or may not be in this video, and then he's got to get the floor mats back in that he got all cleaned up. But let's get started. We're going to lift this thing off the ground. I think we'll probably start with the fenders and the liners, and then work our way to that wideband. We got the fenders bolted back down. You can see down there the 10 millimeters. So what we need to do here is we've got, obviously, guys, these are side specific. Got my he's scrubbing down there, doing a good job. But these guys, how you're gonna know what's what is this leading edge right here bolts up on the front underneath. So we're gonna try to get this in and get at least a couple of these pins started, right? So the little plastic pins, and then you have to get over a section right here. It's gonna be kind of some test fitting. So I'm gonna try to put it up in place, and then we'll show you guys kind of what we got and then go from there. Well, guys, we got these in, and I don't know. We had to go get some different fasteners, like these guys, these like GM style clips. And it's tough because you can't get your hand back behind here to leverage against it to get these pushed in. And the holes on these newer liners are quite a bit thicker than the older ones. So at this point, we're gonna see. I know we can get the 7 millimeter up here because we can reach back behind and poke something through, because there's no holes to line up those 7s that would normally be here. I would like to get at least a couple of them in though. So I don't know, we'll just kind of see how it goes. That's the goal anyway. So let's see what happens. Well, we can kind of use our old ones as a guide to kind of see where we need to put the holes, but unless you can reach from the backside and poke something through, you're gonna have no idea. You're just gonna be completely doing it blind. But we've got the 10 millimeters on the bottom of the front side, and it does seem pretty sturdy. And look, as it goes through a couple heat cycles, I think it'll conform. But either way, I just wanted to kind of show you guys what's going on. We're gonna see if we can get the 7s in. We're gonna try to put the other side in as well, and then we'll come back and try to show you, and then we can move on to the wideband. But if you can find a stock set, guys, that is a better option. We definitely learned some stuff on one side than the other. We were only able to put 2 of the 7 millimeters in, and guys, he actually nailed that one. First stab with a pick is how we got it in place. This other one you can come from the inside, but these back ones, you just don't have any reach. So we didn't put any in the back, and it's still pretty sturdy. Got all of our clips in all the way around. And while they're a little bigger, this one I couldn't get to set as flush as I wanted. It will work. We're gonna keep our eye out for some factory fenders going forward, but he's got the 10s on the bottom. Like I said, guys, if you can find a set of stock ones, I mean, get those. Just because they're thicker, they're more conformed, they're easier to line up, the factory hardware fits it, so on and so forth. Anyway, all right, guys, on to the wideband. We're gonna lift this thing up. We're gonna do the underside first, which should be the easiest part. And really all it consists of is screwing our wideband into place, kind of getting things zip tied up where it's not in the way. And then we'll move to the inside and show you what's involved there. Here's what I've decided to do. Since this is like perfect level to be working under the dash, why not go ahead and hook up our electronics now? And there's really only 2 electronic pieces to this puzzle, guys. There's a power and a ground to get the wideband hooked up. So for the ground, because this is temporary, and remember, we've got more stuff to do. We got to put a shift light in. We're going to leave this open on the bottom of the dash like it is right now. But I use this guy right here as the ground. So you can see goes up to a 10 millimeter up top there. That's the ground. And then as far as this guy over here to grab power, we're just going to stab in beside this 1 amp fuse right here is a good option as far as fuses go. All right, because this thing's fused internally. Well, I guess externally actually. But that's the only 2 connections we have to make. The rest of it's going to be kind of looped up in there because you've got a plug that goes into the O2 sensor. We've got to screw under the car. I am going to show you that. But the other green plug that you see right there actually goes into the HP tuner cable. So it has to be in the vehicle. But aside from that, guys, actually, I take that back. This has to be plugged in the Ballenger box, the wideband that we're using, the other into the HP tuners cable. And then this guy is actually the one that goes outside the car. So it's going to look kind of ugly right now. I'm going to have him put the floor mat in so we have something kind of covering it so it's not just a mess of wires. The other thing though is we need to put a couple 7 millimeters back in this. I'm not really sure why that was unhooked, but it is, and we need to get that hooked back up because I want it nice and stationary when we're out driving. So got a few things to do off camera here, and then we'll get this thing lifted up. I'll kind of pile these wires in here, and then we'll show you underneath what's involved in getting that Ballenger installed in the exhaust. Now that we've got things, you know, kind of roped outside the door there, we need to plug in our O2 sensor that comes with the Ballenger. And guys, this came highly recommended. I've used it on everything. Well, the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 things. Actually, it's 3/4 going to get this out. So anyway, we've used this on the past couple tunes. So the green truck, the red truck, came highly recommended by my tuner. So I'm going to continue using it until he tells me otherwise. But we need to get this guy screwed in to this spot here, this dummy hole. And then we can loop it up and try to get our plug from the inside of the car to out here. Let's get this out. And you want to make sure it's already got some anti-seize on it, so we don't have to worry about putting any more. But if you don't have any, make sure you put some on there. The other thing, guys, is we have already used this thing, so you shouldn't have to calibrate it per se. At least I'm hoping not. So we'll get some confirmation on that as we go. But once you get it in there, you just want to get it snugged down. And then we've got to find a way to route the wire to where Obviously it doesn't burn in half on the exhaust. You know, that's a big deal there. And the other thing is we have to marry it with the plug on the other end. So what I'm thinking is, I'm hoping maybe we can take a couple of these 10s out and possibly get it behind this on the heat shield, and maybe use that to our advantage. I think that would be the best option. We've got a 10 millimeter here, a 10 right here, and then another 10. And if we get those out, I really think we can just kind of route it under here and make our plug-in connection maybe somewhere right here, and then zip tie to the bottom somewhere. And then we're gonna just, like I said, kind of jankily route it into the car, because it's only gonna be a temporary deal. We got those 10 millimeters out, and you can see kind of how we routed it. So we came out where it plugs in here, went up, zip tied it to the fuel lines, kind of out of the heated area. We've got our plug right here that was coming from the inside of the car. Got another zip tie here, kind of holding out of the way. Now I'm gonna put that closeout or that heat shield back in place, and then we will cinch it back down, and we'll try to find an area like right in here to zip tie. If not, you know, the pressure of the door for the most part, I think we can maybe possibly get one right here, and maybe even around the bottom side of the fender, just to keep, you know, we don't want any slack or it dragging or, you know, ripping wires out. So we'll get that back in place, and then we should be back to the door side. You can see kind of how we tied it. Once we got the heat shield back in place, I bent this over a little bit so it wasn't gonna, like, this sharp edge get into the line. And then I zip tied it here. I got another one in the fender, and then actually two of them in the fender, one here and then one on the outer side of the fender. So we're good now. I don't think that's gonna, yeah, that will never get lower than the exhaust, so we should be good there. And I can maybe tuck it in this subframe connector even, but I think we're good. I'm gonna kind of cinch it up, and the door will kind of keep the slack out of it, and then we've got it tight enough here where it should keep the slack out. So at this point, guys, all we have to do is plug in the box and kind of, you know, fish our wires around the inside so they're not, you know, interfering with the pedals. But plugging that thing in is pretty much where we're at. Well, we're ready to pull it off of the ramps, at least we're hoping. You know, we've not had it gear. I have put it in first and reverse just to make sure that it, you know, it kind of moved. But you can see, guys, we ended up coming up, kind of tucking it under the fender. Like I said, guys, this is just temporary, but it's out of the way. It's not going to drag anywhere. Got everything for the most part underneath of the floor mat. It's another reason why I wanted the floor mat in here, so we're not grabbing our feet in this. But to make connection, all we have to do is plug this in when we're ready. And then we've got our Ballenger box over there and our HP tuners box. It's obviously going to go in the laptop. But at this point, we're going to set it down. We're going to attempt to pull it off the lift, and hope, guys, I'm really hoping that it goes in like first gear. We're going to pull it up a little bit and let it set here and idle and get kind of up to temperature. And then we're going to shut it down, check all the fluids again, and then we're ready to hook up the computer and go for a burn. So good news and bad news. Okay, the good news is, came off the lift in first gear. Clutch felt good, felt strong, definitely a lot lighter than the clutch that we pulled out of it. And we let it sit here and idle. It did not overheat, the thermostat opened, the fans kicked on, everything's good. We checked the fluids are good. Added a little bit of coolant, and I still think we'll have to let it set, guys. Since we let it get hot, obviously we're not gonna take the radiator cap off. We just put some more in the overflow. However, we went to shut the hood, and guess what? It won't close. And the reason it won't close is because this is a box off of my Ram Air car. This opening right here is way bigger. And I feel like a lot of guys go to this, but for some reason the hood won't close with it on there. So we're gonna have to swap it out. Luckily I have another one. He's cleaning up right now. And I don't know if you guys can see the difference in the front, the opening. Look how much different the opening is from on the front of that one versus how tall this one stands. So that's gotta be our issue. It feels like we didn't just slam the hood down, but it feels like that's where it's hitting, is when we come to push it down, it's not latching. So that's not gonna work. I'm not gonna carve into the hood to make that box work, especially since we have another extra laying around. But he's gonna clean that guy up. Not a whole lot to it, guys. We're just gonna have to pull the filter out. We'll take these two 10 millimeters out on both sides, unplug the IAT, and we'll probably disconnect here from the throttle body. That seems to be the easiest way. Of course, we'll unplug the mass airflow sensor, and yeah, it's not going to be a big deal. And maybe by the time we do all this, it'll cool off and we can check the coolant again. But either way, we're about ready to take it out on the road. We've got the wiring kind of in here. I'm gonna have him hold the laptop. Basically, I'm just hooking it up. We're gonna get a start logging. Hopefully our Ballenger's reading. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by turning the key on, and hopefully the radio is not jamming. He was jamming out a minute ago. It is. I don't want to listen to any radio. All right, so we're gonna hit the connect to car button, and we're gonna hit the log, and I'm hoping that it's gonna work. Got it counting down over there till the thing's ready. And so what we're ultimately hoping for is that matches what HP Tuners is saying. So let's start recording, and hopefully that's grabbing that info. It is. The Ballenger's there, and it's at 16, but we don't have it started. So, and now we're gonna drive, guys. It's showing. It's pretty close. It's hard to tell because they're so far apart. Anyway, we're gonna go for a drive. We'll try to show you guys a little bit of the drive, but let's see what happens. So from what I'm seeing, guys, the Ballenger box and the what's reading in HP Tuners is almost dead on, which is a good sign. Maybe it's a half a point off. We need to get it close. May have to make some adjustments there. I'll talk to him. But either way, let's give it a shot. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to film. I may hand the camera to him and have him film it, but I'm a little nervous. Just want it to work, you know. Made it a couple blocks with no issues, other than I'm a little concerned about the alternator voltage. So we're not going to get real far from the house here, but it's went through 3 gears, I know. We're going to try to get it into 4 here. And other than it being ridiculously hot today, and this thing is kind of loud, everything seems to be good on the computer. So we're going to go into 4th here and see if we got 4th. We got 4th gear. All right, we're not going to push it too far. We're going to take it back to the house, check the radiator. We're going to let it cool off, check the radiator fluid, check the oil again. May even pull it back up on the lift and check the trans fluid. Aside from that, the power steering fluid is something I really want to check because we've turned it, obviously, out driving. So anyway, we're gonna get it back to the house and we'll do a once over. We're back from the first drive. Got some good data. Went into, let's see, we went into 6th gear. We got it out on the highway, got into 6th gear, guys. Pretty flawless drive. Other than the alternator, I'm a little concerned about the voltage. Everything seemed good. I'm not going to concern myself about these misfires yet. I'm going to send this to him, have him look at it. You know, he's the professional. He does this, and I have a lot of faith in him, guys. But either way, we're gonna call it good for tonight. I'm not going to end this video here because I think we'll go out again when it cools off. It's really, really hot right now. We're in the middle of the day. It's about 100 degrees. It's supposed to cool off later this week. And so we're going to let it set. We're going to go through, check the fluids. We've got it up here in the top garage now. We're going to check the fluids, especially the power steering. Remember I said that we wanted to check that. And then I'm going to send this file off to him. It may not give him much data because the car was pretty warm. Generally, he likes to see it from a cold start. And so I'll come out here and do it again if he's not happy at this. He may make some adjustments off this. But either way, the next part you're going to see, guys, will be us hopefully going out again in a little cooler weather, continuing to try to break this clutch in. We still have to do an oil change after, I'm going to probably say 100 miles, we'll do an oil change. And other than that, it's just driving and tuning, driving, logging, putting miles on the clutch. Here we are the next night, and so the tuner looked at the file. He said hey, you're gonna have to swap the injectors. They are not performing like they're supposed to. So, you know, it kind of sucks, but look, it's also not that big a deal. We could take the 10 millimeters out, unplug the injectors, and pop this thing right out. So he's got another set of injectors. They're just stock injectors. We're gonna put those in and see if that eliminates some of our issues. I didn't think it was driving that bad, but he said, man, it's not good. So we're gonna see if we can do that without removing a whole bunch of stuff. We shouldn't have to remove that much. We're just gonna unclip all the loom. Obviously, we gotta undo the injectors and then unhook the fuel line, but it should be relatively quick swap. He sent me another file to flash in. And of course, while we're doing this, guys, we're gonna check all the fluids as well, making sure they're all topped off, just like I said we were going to do after we got back from another drive. So we're gonna do that real quick, and I think we're gonna go out, if it doesn't rain, for another drive here. Swapped out, I know it's probably incredibly hard to hear, but it's swapped out, it's idling, and it's actually got no misfires. It had several misfires. I don't know if you guys noticed that in the last log that we did, but this guy knows his stuff. And so we're gonna take it out for a drive. Hopefully it looks like it's about to pour, but I think we can go south and avoid it. So we're gonna give it a shot anyway. Well, guys, I didn't film any while we were driving this time. No issues. We actually put another probably 15 miles on it, logged it all, got it sitting right here. Getting ready to send it to him. Had way less misfires than we had before, and so we're gonna see what he says. We still got a couple misfires. We don't really notice it while we're driving so much. Actually, it does feel a little smoother than it was last night. Of course, in this video, it's all in one video, but it feels a little smoother to me than it was last night. We're gonna have to get this thing down though. We noticed we went on the highway this time, and it's kind of floaty in the front. And I think it's because it's picking up so much air because the front is so much higher. At least that's my theory. You know, we had the weight of the turbo on the front of this thing, so it was set quite a ways lower. But we'll adjust that here at some point. But mainly, we're gonna get this tune off to him, and then we'll check back in with the next update here in just a second. Got it back on the lift, and for a couple reasons. One, I think we're gonna check the fluid in the transmission. But we've decided, or he's decided, that he's going to swap exhaust. I actually bought this for the Formula. This is the really high-end MagnaFlow setup, 3-inch into the nice polished tips, like the quad tips, like that really nice setup. And after driving this thing, and we haven't even been above 3,000 RPMs, it sounds like a tractor. And so we're gonna change exhaust out. And so what that means is this thing has an aftermarket center mount exhaust. This is not the factory center mount. This is an aftermarket company that made this. And guys, it's not great. So for one, when you're looking down on it from the top, this pipe sticks out quite a ways further than the other. It got a huge gap on this side, a smaller gap on this side. It's just not made like the factory made it. So we're going to take this off. Now the downside to this is it is loudmouth, is the exhaust that is on here. Loudmouth with long tubes and no catalytic converters is annoyingly loud. I mean, like, and it doesn't give you the true sound of the motor itself. It all kind of runs together. And so we've decided we're going to take it off. Now there's not a whole lot to it, I guess you could say. They did weld it here at this connection. We're gonna have to cut that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no way we can get, unless we want to take the rear end out, there's no way we can get it out at one piece. So all we're gonna have to do really is we're gonna have to unbolt it here. We're gonna have to cut there, and then the rest of it should just be pointed out of the hangers here, both front and rear. And then we'll have to see, here's another thing. Look at the screw. Hopefully you guys can see that if it's light enough, but there's a screw, looks like some sort of wall screw. It's just not well made. And so between that screw, there's two in the center. We're really not gonna have holes that you'll be able to see. Now, the factory piece, there are several holes. So if you're trying to take it off a factory one, you're gonna have to take it to a body shop and have some holes filled. But the rest of this is held by two-sided tape on the leading edge. So we're gonna carefully take that off. I'll kind of cut in and out and show you guys that. But I'm gonna go ahead and whip all these connections loose and see if we can get some of the piping out of the way. Well, we're giving you guys a checkup here. Got the center pieces out once I got them unbolted and all the hangers undone. They came right out. So this has been welded as well as this. So we're not gonna be able to get that out separately, but I still think we have enough room to slide it forward and then dip it out. We are gonna have to cut that up there. That'll be our next step though. I'm just gonna use a Sawzall and a pretty sharp blade and see if we can knock through that. I know this stainless stuff's kind of hard to cut through, but aside from that, got the sheet metal screws out that go here. I'm just hoping they're pretty low on the bumper. Like I said, I don't think you'll even notice them. And then I did have to unbolt a 10 millimeter that held the bottom, which that's a factory piece. So we're gonna get that stuff, we're gonna cut that, get the exhaust out of the way, and then we'll see about what we gotta do to get the two-sided tape off. Holy cow, that stuff is tough to cut, guys. I actually wrecked that blade, that yellow blade. Had to go with this heavy duty blade. If you guys have ever seen those before, I'll try to list those in the description. That's what it took to get through that, and it went through first go. So anyway, make sure you don't touch those blades. I've done that in the past, and let me tell you, that is not fun. They're hot. Anyway, all we got to do now is pull that intermediate pipe out, as they call it, and all the old stuff's out of the way at least. I got it started here on the edge. He's heating it up with the heat gun, and then I'm kind of going down behind him. Now guys, don't leave the heat on the paint for too long. You'll bubble the clear, but keep it moving back and forth like what he's doing, and we should be able to get it the rest of the way off. The cool thing is the tape seems to be staying for the most part with the piece, which is even better. So what I thought would turn into a fiasco actually came off really easy. I'm out of 3M adhesive remover, which is crazy because I've removed so many emblems on this channel. That's probably why I'm out, but no paint removed, no scratches, no issues. We got a little bit left there of tar, but guys, you can barely see the hole where that screw was at, and same thing here. But honestly, it's so far under the car, I don't even know that you'll ever even notice. Yeah, and I like this look better. I don't know, you know, some people may argue that, but in the factory center mount does fit better. I'm not gonna lie, it does fit pretty well, but it was also assembled, you know, in the factory under factory specs, so, or at least from SLP. But either way, guys, we've got everything completely off now. So if we started it up now, it'd be so stupid. Actually, it'd probably sound about like it did with that old exhaust on it. Anyway, I think he's got a majority of the pipes clean. We may start threading some stuff in here. Now, the best way I've found to do exhaust, and I've done a lot of these on the ground, guys, so having a lift is a plus, but it can be done on the ground. It goes together kind of like a puzzle. So honestly, this big pipe, your intermediate pipe, as they call it, would go in first. Then you're over the axle tube. Then we had to put the muffler in place. Now nothing is tight. The only thing we've done, and then of course the tailpipes on both sides, but the only thing we've done is we did put it in the clamps, or the mounts, I mean. So all of this is put in a mount. There's a screw together one here, which there's a piece welded onto the side of the pipe. Hopefully you guys can see that. And then of course the ones that bolt in the back, which your kit will come with. And yeah, I mean, really the main areas you're gonna wanna focus on, you can see we've got some of the screw jacks underneath here, kind of holding up some pressure. What we generally like to do is we start up front tightening the very forwardmost one first. That's just been my luck. So we're gonna start there, we're gonna tighten that one up. We're gonna move to this intermediate pipe, kind of move it, making sure it's not hitting on the axle. That's the downside to having something lowered, is you do have, you know, it's pretty close. The only area I see that may be a problem isn't really the axle as much as it is the panhard rod here. So I don't know, we may have to go with a relocation mount for that. They make a relocation brace here, so I don't know, we'll just have to see. The first thing though I want to do is we're going to start up here, we're going to go ahead and tighten these. They should be 15 millimeters for the most part. We're going to get those tight, work to this one, and then back to the muffler, and then the tailpipes, and then the actual tips, guys, we will leave them for absolutely last, because you can move those in and out, kind of get them where you want them, and you know, kind of aim them in the place that you want them. So you guys know how OCD I am, and exhaust pipes are no different. So we've got everything snug, right? From the front to the back, or from the intermediate pipe anyway. And the only thing we don't have tight is that clamp, or that little arm that comes off of the intermediate pipe. And then we're sitting here racking our brains like, does this need to come out? Does it need to go up, down, right, left? And so he went to grab a level, because that's how we are around here. we want things nice and square. So we went to grab a level, and once we grab the level, guys, I think we're good. This muffler, this is common for it to set like, see how it's kind of, I don't know, maybe you guys can't tell, or maybe it's just the bottom of the car that's making me think that, but it's all fitting like it's supposed to. So we're gonna get it snug down after we test this with the level, and then we may give it a start and see what it sounds like with this new exhaust. I think we've got, until we can get it out further where we can get a further view, because we're obviously up against the wall here, we won't know as far as placement. We may have to move the tips around. But as far as the exhaust, we are bolted down, guys, tightened up. We got it down on the ground. He's gonna start it up. Let's see what the difference is. It's in neutral, right?
Yeah.
Way better. Sounds like a car. Woo! I can hear myself thinking here. Definitely a lot better, guys. You can hear that cam now. Not everything's running together. We are getting ready to take it out for another drive here, guys. A couple things though. Obviously we just got the exhaust on it, but I got to load a new tune. I'm probably not going to show you guys any more of the tuning process until maybe we get to some wide open throttle pulls, because it's pretty boring as far as like just driving it around and whatnot. I'm getting several like revisions for drivability tune, which look guys, if you have a tuner, you want a drivability tune. Most tuners will only do what I would call a glory pull. They're going to get you the most amount of power they can on a dyno, and that's it. The car probably drives like crap. So there's a lot of those tuners out there, and I'm not saying they're all like that, but a lot of them are. And so I didn't want that. That is not the majority of the way this car is going to get used. Now look, it is owned by a teenager. I'm sure that it's going to be, well, it's owned by his parents, but a teenager will be driving it. So I'm sure it's going to get its share of rips, and even dad rips on it. But I wanted it to drive good, you know, and that's important to me. So this process here, where we send a revision, we load a new tune, it seems to be that the new injectors or the stock injectors are doing better. I don't know how that's going to handle as we get up in the power band. We'll just have to, you know, lean on the tuner and see what he thinks. But one thing I did notice, and that's the whole reason I was going to tell you guys, the alternator is definitely bad in this car. I've got it hooked up to the battery tender right now, or the C-Tech, but I noticed after we got the exhaust pulled off, we pulled it forward so we could kind of get a look at how they were setting as far as, you know, are they even? And it definitely looks good. But I noticed that the lights on the dash are flickering, and generally, guys, that is a telltale sign that the voltage regulator and the alternator is bad. And this pipe still needs to come out a little, but I'm going to heat that elbow up underneath and then kind of move it out gradually. It's not quite centered, but I mean, you got to be looking for it. It's something that would drive me crazy. But as far as the tips, I actually like this look better. It definitely sounds more refined. And look at this. He wanted a 1320 sticker, and this thing still needs clean. We're not worried about cleaning it yet, but he put a new 1320 sticker on. But then look at there, repping dad. Nothing wrong with that. But anyway, guys, we're gonna go out and I'll let you guys know. I'll turn the camera on if there's any major malfunctions. We are gonna limp it through with this alternator on it for now. I'm not worried about changing it quite yet, but we are gonna have to change it. Well, after driving this thing, doing the logging and whatnot, a couple things have reared their head. One being, it's got a ton of fuel, and he's saying he's having to pull a bunch out. Now, with that being said, guys, this does have a dual pump setup, but I think we're gonna work around that. We're gonna at least try, but it does have a couple misfires, cylinder 1 and cylinder 6. Now remember, we reused the plug wires that came on this car, so my thought is we're gonna start with the plug wires. If the plug wires don't fix it, we're gonna work our way to the coil pack, and then from the coil pack, we're gonna swap injectors. So I think what we'll do is we'll pull this plug wire off, number 1 and number 6. We'll put a different one, completely different one on, and we will take it out for a drive and see if that eliminates our misfire on 1 and 6. If it doesn't, we are probably going to unbolt a coil pack, move it to cylinder 2, same thing on 6, and swap them and see if it jumps to another cylinder. If that doesn't affect it, then we will go to the fuel injectors and we will swap one, because I don't have any other ones, we will swap, you know, 1 to 2 and see if that fixes it. So the easiest stuff to change obviously is the plug wires, so that's why we're going to start there. But other than that, guys, everything else is going great. It seems to be running good. It's just little hiccups, and so I'm not really willing to pull the fuel pump out right now, because I think he can just continue to back the fuel off. So I think we're going to be good. We may at some point put a pressure tester on it and see what kind of pressure it's getting. It's not uncommon for people to run the stock fuel pressure regulator that's in the tank with the stock feed line and stock everything else, essentially. So we just look, he's just going to have to tune around. That would be my guess for now. But either way, let's get the plug wire swapped out and see what that helps, if that helps. Got those plug wires swapped. We're getting ready to flash another revision in. But before we do that, I've got to charge up my computer. These are the old ones, guys. They don't seem to have any issues. I'm going to toss them. Look, I shouldn't have reused those anyway. That's me just kind of cheaping out. But we are going to adjust the coilovers. Obviously, when we took the turbo off, this thing sets weird, and there's not as much weight on the front. So we're going to lift this thing up a little bit. I won't show you guys that. You have seen me adjust coilovers many a times on this channel, but I do want to see if we can get close up some fender gap on the front of this thing. Got this thing, for the most part, lined out and driving. We've adjusted the coilovers in the front. We may need to come up maybe probably 1/8 of an inch on the actual spanner, or the actual locking piece on the bottom of the strut, or the coilover, whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to end this video here, and the reason why, guys, is at this point, he hasn't sent any more tunes because we have to do some break-in on the clutch. The LS7 clutch does require some break-in, so we need to put some like in-town miles on it. Now it's running really good and there's no issues. We got rid of the misfires, but until we get the clutch broke in, we really can't do any like wide open throttle pulls to get that tuning part of it lined out. So we're basically staying below 3,000 RPMs, and this thing is filthy. We need to wash it up as well. We were trying to wait until it was completely done, but we've got some surprises coming, including some new wheels in a video very soon, guys. I'll probably show you guys that. We're gonna try to line out the suspension as far as where we want it to set. Once we do that, I'm gonna get it aligned before we put the new wheels on. So be looking for a video coming up of both the new wheels and obviously some wide open throttle pulls. Now we still do have, he wants to put a shift light in it. We've got the pillar out still, so we got to put that in. I wanted to wait until the tuning was done because I'm temporarily plugged in there for power, and I want to kind of use that piece in order to get the shift light going. But anyway, guys, if you are enjoying the content on this car, please, like always, go down there and smash that thumbs up button. If you are not subscribed, guys, go down there, hit the subscribe. Of course, ring that bell icon that notifies you every time we drop a new video, and stay tuned to see this thing go wide open throttle.